Greetings, Elderly Vegan here, and welcome to my video on how a whole food, plant-based diet has the potential to reduce the likelihood of dementia. And one way this is accomplished involves the beneficial effects of dietary fiber. As unlikely as this seems to me, dietary fiber actually plays a critical role in helping reduce dementia. And this primarily has to do with gut bacteria utilizing the soluble fiber in your diet as a food source. And this results in the production of what are referred to as short-chain fatty acids. And for those of you who've seen my other videos, you will recall short-chain fatty acids are a common theme where health-promoting benefits are concerned. Yet apparently, these fatty acids are also capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier. And if this is a new term for you, it functions as the guardian of the brain and spinal cord by preventing toxins, disease-causing organisms, and harmful molecules from gaining access to the brain and spinal cord. Therefore, the intended purpose of the blood-brain barrier is to exclude the bad guys and allow only the good guys to have access to your brain. Anyway, one of these short-chain fatty acids achieves three things. First, they reduce chronic inflammation, which is a persistent, destructive force which will damage healthy cells and tissues. These same fatty acids also promote the growth and survival of neurons in memory-related regions of the brain. Finally, these fatty acids apparently address the two classic hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. And although not exactly household words, these hallmarks refer to the accumulation of misfolded proteins called beta amyloid plaque, as well as the formation of neurofibrillary tangles. Suffice it to say, you don't want either one of them. Anyway, these fatty acids produced by the gut microbiome promote the clearance of beta amyloid plaque, as well as inhibiting the formation of neurofibrillary tangles. And yet another way a high-fiber diet helps indirectly counter the increased risk for dementia is by slowing digestion, which reduces the sharp spikes in glucose. Over time, spiking glucose on a frequent basis has the potential to damage cognitive function. Furthermore, a high-fiber intake also promotes the reduction in blood pressure. This is important because increased blood pressure narrows and stiffens cerebral arteries leading to the brain, which results in reducing oxygen and nutrient supplies. And when this happens, it leads to vascular dementia and increased risk of stroke. And I might also mention that the average American gets only about half the recommended 30 grams of fiber per day, whereas those on a whole food plant-based diet have the potential to obtain close to 100 grams of fiber per day. Now then, as for specific phytonutrients which help prevent dementia, there are several. And again, they're not exactly household words, but as you continue down your path to learn about nutrition, you will be encountering these words time and time again. Anyway, the health-promoting benefits of the phytonutrients are accomplished in multiple ways, reducing free radical damage, lowering inflammation, and improving blood flow. And some of the more noteworthy phytonutrients include curcumin from turmeric, resveratrol from grapes and berries, anthocyanins from blueberries and citrus, carotenoids from dark leafy greens and carrots, sulforaphane in broccoli and other members of the cruciferous veggies, allicin in fresh garlic, 3-NB in celery, and a polyphenol, abbreviated as EGCG in green tea, are some of the real superstars for avoiding Alzheimer's disease. And I bet you'll be interested to know what EGCG actually stands for. Epigallocatechin 3 gallate. Easy peasy? No, EGCG. And for that matter, 3NB isn't much fun either, but we'll leave that for another day. And speaking of 3NB, from celery and resveratrol from grapes, if one wants to obtain what is referred to as the therapeutic dose, and by that I'm referring to the amount of nutrient actually required to achieve the desired health benefits, in this case, both 3NB and resveratrol will have to be taken in supplement form, as the desired nutrients in food sources are just too dilute. But I also want to mention one more way to help prevent Alzheimer's disease, and that's by activating the body's way of house cleaning at the cellular level. This process is referred to as autophagy. And with regard to dementia, the house cleaning process is accomplished by removing those two classic hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease, namely beta amyloid plaque and neurofibrillary tangles. And the historical and most well-documented way to achieve the body's cellular house cleaning mechanism is through caloric restriction or intermittent fasting. But apparently, research has shown there are other ways to activate this process. Both prolonged high-intensity aerobic training and high-intensity strength training also activate autophagy. In addition, there are supplements known to activate this process. Again, we encounter resveratrol as well as a compound referred to as NAD+. Not surprisingly, in order to acquire a sufficient amount of these two compounds, they will again need to be taken in supplement form. Apparently, they act synergistically together to activate the process of autophagy. And perhaps it's worth mentioning that we do indeed produce our own NAD+, but the problem is the production of this compound consistently declines once we reach our 30s. And it's also worth mentioning that polyphenols in green tea, turmeric, coffee, berries, and cacao powder also help to activate autophagy. And with regard to a final word on jump-starting the cellular house cleaning process, heat therapy or heat stress also shows promise. Besides, if one can activate this house cleaning process, you simultaneously activate one of the 7 known longevity genes common to all mammals. And that is an encouraging thought. At any rate, I hope you survived all the technical aspects of this video, but without a doubt, one can go a long way to avoid dementia when you embrace a whole food, plant-based diet. To your good health, the elderly vegan.